The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Locker Talk. I am Mitchell Blair. This is the last show of the season, and it is a very special show for an obvious reason, and you'll get into that as we get into the night. As you can see again, I am by myself hosting the show. Pete Paczko not with us. If you know Pete, if you know anything about the local sports scene, if you're a friend of Pete, you know that he's been battling stage 4 liver cancer for a number of years, and earlier this month he made the decision that to get off of chemo. So Pete obviously is in his final days of what has been a tremendous fight, and we are going to do a show tonight. It's not going to be talking about a different local sports that we usually do. Instead, we are just going to talk about Pete, because when this show resumes probably in September, the chances of him being with us may not be there. So later on tonight, we are going to bring on a panel of very special guests to talk about Pete. But the first thing I wanted to do was talk to our longtime producer of this show, Graham Condo. And I guess, Graham, first off, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
This is going to be a tough show, folks. I'm not going to lie. I sort of joked to some people that the Shoppers Drug Mart on Park Street that I might have to buy about 6 boxes of Kleenex before this show is over. So live with me if you don't mind. Graham, when we think about Pete, and him and I have been doing this show for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. Can I just get your thoughts on him?
He's been a bastion of local sports. Let's put this in perspective. I started volunteering here when it was Cable Regina in 1995.
Yep.
That's when he was doing Regina Sports Report.
Yep.
I was a young and naive 19-year-old. 30 years later, I'm 49 now. Pete has been here that time and longer. He's been part of this family for a very, very long time. And he started with Regina Sports Report, moved on to Sports Zone.
Yep. That's when I first came on board, right. And then left for a couple of years before coming back. Mm-hmm.
And then we started up Locker Talk to come in line with the rest of the province, and you guys just carried the way for the last 15 years or so on this show.
What is it about the local sports scene? And it's a question that if he was here, we could ask him, but what is it about the local sports scene that gives him such the passion to make this show what it is every week?
I think part of it is the fact that he's seen young players grew up to be superstars. I'm thinking of Jason Claremont in particular. He had him on, I think it was Sports Zone years ago when he was with the RMF, with Regina Minor Football. As you know, he's gone on to great things. The punter for the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks, John Ryan. Yep. Again, he brought them on. Both of you brought them on early on when they were young kids, and to see these local athletes go on to become these big superstars, I think that means a lot to them.
How important has this show been for local sports? Because without Pete, I don't know if this show would be what it is.
Pete,
and in a day and age where the media, and I have said this all along, the media in this town is not what it was 10, 15 years ago, but that is not the fault of the Leader Post, CTV, Global, It's just the fact that the way the cuts have hit media, and cuts affected local sports. But it didn't affect it here, and I think a lot of the reason for that is because Pete wouldn't let it. And I'm just going to be completely honest here. When it came to figuring out what we were going to do each week, I didn't need to put a lot of input into anything. I'd maybe see some stuff, send it to Pete and go, hey, I think we should get this, or have we seen this? And within a week or two, we would have it. But Pete, even though local sports coverage in this city was dying, and basically now is dead for the most part, Pete wouldn't let that go.
No. And quite really, this show has been Pete. I mean, Pete books the guest. He gets all the questions lined up. He did a lot of the work for this show that you and I didn't have to do. He was running the show, and just the fact that alone makes this show perfect. I mean, I'll say this as well, is that the fact that both you and Pete are on this show together is great, because the two of you have great chemistry together. You've had great chemistry over the years, and we'll see some of that chemistry later on with some of the Paczko we have. But it's just been fun. He made local sports fun to cover.
This wasn't a job for him.
No.
And that's the one thing. Every week we would do this. We taped the show on Tuesday nights, for those that don't know. And so it would be funny, because I would leave here on a Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, I would get up and there would be an email with the show lineup for next week. And I'm like, how much in advance do you have? And he'd be like, well, I just know that at this time of year, we're going to get this person. At this time of year, we're going to get that. I have a couple spots that are open. We sort of look for it. Was what he would send on Wednesday compared to what he sent the Tuesday before the show for taping for you and for Patrick Palmer, who's been directing things, would it look the same? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But this wasn't a job for him. It was a passion. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he understands how big his contributions were to local sports in this city.
I think he's getting a general idea now.
Yes.
Because of the huge outpouring of support that's been going his way, and still is, quite rightly so. Like I said, he made this show. He made this show work, and without him, we wouldn't have the context that we have. We wouldn't have covered the sports that we have. He introduced this. He helped to introduce a lot of sports to the city.
He did, and when I think of that, and there are some people, and they won't be on with us tonight, but I think if they're watching, they will agree. Lawn bowling, and we're going to see a lawn bowling thing. We decided one time, you know what? Let's give these guys 15 minutes, and now. The Regina Lawn Bowling Club, great friends of the program.
And they're doing well.
A person you're going to see on here later tonight, Andrew Gottselig from Hooplife. He reached out to Pete to see if he could plug what at that time was just a little grassroots basketball school. And now that thing's up province-wide.
It's a juggernaut.
It is a juggernaut. Yeah. Pickleball. When we first saw pickleball, and I'll admit, we went, what the HE double hockey sticks is this? But both Pete and I were fortunate enough to call games at the National Pickleball Championships, which were going on at the International Trade Center last year. And that event was crazy for the amount of people going in and out of there.
Yeah. I also remember a few years ago, back when High Impact Wrestling was around.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up.
The two of you were commentators for that, and you were able to play around with that.
And that, for me, was a couple of years that we had so much fun. And I don't know if Pete's the same type of wrestling guy that I am, because I've been going to wrestling at Exhibition Auditorium since the 80s when Bret Hart, Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith, those guys were coming to town every Tuesday night. And when, and obviously Ed Whalen, just an icon, the Stampede Wrestling guy. When Mike Roberts, King Cash, approached Pete and I to do that show for them, for you guys, we were all over it. And just sort of to have that and be a part of that. It wasn't Stampede Wrestling, but it was in a way.
It was just fun.
It was. Yeah. It was fun. And we're going to have some stuff on that later tonight as well.
But just the fact that, for me, when the wrestling was at its strongest, we had them on once a month.
Yep.
I used to look forward to that because I knew we'd be in for a huge performance.
Yeah, and same when the Rider Pep Band would come in, because we always knew we were going to have fun with that. I know there was a couple times this year when they were in, and they did some great stuff. But yeah, I know we're running short of time, so we're going to take a break here right away. When this show could have taken a huge run off the cliff in March of 2020, I remember driving home. It was March 18th, March 19th. I was planning to take a trip to Edmonton to go watch the Oilers play. What would have been their final 2 home games of the year. And I left that night, and I found out what had happened at the NBA game where it had been canceled, which started everything being canceled. We never let this show get canceled, and we could have because the world shut down. And the reason that it didn't shut down is because Pete wasn't going to let this show go away. Even though nobody was really doing anything, he wasn't going to let this show go away. And there were emails that were sent between you, between me. How are we going to do this? It was a year where we didn't see one another except for on a Zoom screen.
Yes.
But we got it done. And I think that's sort of maybe the one thing in all the times is that, yeah, this show wasn't smooth to get it done, but at the end of the day, and you were a big part of that as well, we got it done.
We got it done, yeah. But again, a lot of that was Pete getting the guests in through Zoom or something along those lines, and there were a lot of hiccups along the way that year, but we got through it. But we also gained contacts of local athletes that have moved on outside of Regina, and we got to interview those folks as well. We got to feature some people that we wouldn't have been able to feature if we were just stuck here in the studio.
Yep, and as you said, we went to a lot of Zoom calls in the last couple of years, and that's because we were able to do that. As I break it off with you, what does Pete mean to the local sports community here? Because I know that you know a lot of people as well.
Yeah, everything. If you're involved in local sports, the amateur sports, the smaller teams, you know Pete Paczko because he's talked to you.
And if you haven't, where have you been?
Yeah, exactly. There's a huge long list that I can't even fathom of the people that have been greeted by Pete, interviewed by Pete, just for this local sports show, and it's been a joy. It's been a joy these past number of years because of that.
Graham Condo, thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Pete. Or thanks, Mitch.
When we come back, we are going to have 4 friends of the program come on to talk a little bit more about Pete. You are watching Locker Talk on AccessNow.
So, I just got a couple things to say. This whole thing's been brewing for a while now. Blair taking his little digs, his little shots. And I do mean little. Well, tonight, that's all gonna come to an end. Center ice at the angle. It's gonna end. You hear me, Blair? They're gonna be carting you out in a box. A little itty-bitty box. It's human bowling, and it's so much more. I've been waiting. And you won't have to look to find me.
You know, Paczko, all you do is beak. Beak, beak, beak. One of these days, you're gonna learn I'm the man. And in order to be the man, you've got to beat the man. find out who's number one. All me, all the time. You don't have to accept it, just understand it. All me, baby. Human bowling, we're gonna end this thing right now.
You want some of me?
You
want some of me now?
I'm gonna leave you to
You want some of me now? You want some of me now? Huh?
You want it?
You want some? No. Come on. I'm lucky this thing's here.
That's truly pathetic. Look what he did to the thing. He destroyed it.
All I gotta say is, I'm just a little less pathetic. That's good, isn't it? Oh yeah. Ain't gonna be no rematch.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. A very special program as we pay tribute to Pete Paczko, who, of course, is in a struggle right now, and that's the reason he hasn't been here, as referenced in the first segment. And I've brought along 4 people who are good friends of Pete and good friends of the program, as we are just going to spend tonight talking about the host of this program. Yeah, I guess it's one of those weeks where we could have talked about the Red Sox being sold, Frank McChrystal going into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, but that's going to have to wait. And I think those organizations would be, and that individual would be more than okay with waiting. Introducing at the far end of the table is Chris Latimer. He is the head coach of the Sheldon Spartans football team, and of course, Pete's an assistant coach with them. The next 2 guests are no strangers to this program. You see them on here all the time. Andrew Gottselig from Hooplife and Frank Fiacco from the Lonsdale Boxing Club. And next to me, yeah, we had to bring him in, even though he got by security. He, like AJ Willett, he just piled through the hole and came in. Rob Vanstone, formerly of the Leader Post and now with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And first off, guys, I want to thank you all for joining me as we talk about Pete. Chris, I want to start with you. Your football team did a tremendous thing a couple of weeks ago. You got a group of your kids together to head down to Pete's place, a walk from Sheldon down to Pete's place to pay tribute to him. I thought that was great. I saw a video of it. I wanted to be there, but just was unable to. We know what Pete Paczko, the local sports enthusiast and the TV host is, but we don't get a chance to see Pete Paczko, football coach. And I've heard nothing but good things about him as a football coach from his days when he was coaching in RMF. He's bounced around from school to school, but he had found a home at Sheldon. But what made you want to pick Pete up, and what has he meant to the Sheldon Williams program?
Well, Pete's been great, obviously, with us for the last, whatever, it's been 3 or 4 years. He's, I've known Pete for longer than that, so we first met, I think, in a few Rams junior camps back in, early 2000s, whatever it was, a long time ago. And just the way he, his passion when he's around the young kids, teaching, like just wanting to teach football, and how he interacts with them, and how they respond to him as well. Like he's, obviously you guys know he's a hilarious human being, and always got a joke and a funny anecdote to go along with any kind of coaching thing that he's got. So the kids really respond to that, and it was about, about 4 years ago, and him and I met after a couple of football games, and we just chatted, and he thought it would be kind of cool if he could come and coach with me, and a couple months later we made it happen. And then you saw it every day at practice. He coached running backs for me. And every day you could just, like the guys when they were not in drills, they were right beside Pete, looking for another story, looking for another joke or whatever. They really responded to his coaching style that way. They felt comfortable with him. They saw him as a real leader and a mentor, somebody that they could really look up to. And I think for me to bring guys like that onto our coaching staff was a no-brainer, right? Like that's what we want there, and he just fit the bill right away.
And obviously he loved guiding young men, and obviously he's doing that with your program.
Yeah.
And he was doing a great job. And from what I hear, yeah, he was good with the one-liners and the sarcasm, but I hear every now and then there might have been a little bit of frustration boil over and some words that he obviously wouldn't put on this program would come out. But I think everybody needs to be that way if they're a head coach. Depending on the age bracket when they're high school kids, you can get away with that most of the time.
Yeah, there was always that too, and which, like you said, goes along with it. But
your kids too, and obviously they showed up when you needed them to for that event at Pete's place a few weeks ago. They also had a genuine love for him, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and you can see it when we put the call out. This wasn't the first time that they've kind of responded to help him out. A couple years ago when he was going through chemo and he was kind of laid up there for a bit, we had players that would go over, walk his dog, help him out with yard work, do all kinds of stuff like that. So, and that just speaks to it's not, it speaks to Pete, right, and the impact that he has on these young men, and that they're willing to just jump and run and go help or just go say hi, or we had kids that would just go sit in his basement and chat football or chat hockey or whatever with him and stuff.
Which is something he would absolutely love.
Yeah, he just eats that stuff up, right?
Yeah.
So,
Andrew, you have been on this show. I can't remember how many years it has been that you've been on this show, but I know that, and obviously promoting local sports is something we do here, and one of the people that we started to promote was you way back when you had this little basketball camp running out of an elementary school called Hooplife, and that formed a pretty strong relationship, a pretty strong friendship with us. We have seen Hooplife go from basically the ground floor to now it's something that's in Saskatoon, and I know you're thinking about expanding it even more. If it wasn't for Pete sort of helping promote, where would Hooplife be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Where would Hooplife be? Not where it's at now, that's for sure. That's 100% for sure. I like that you spoke first, because that, when you hear those stories of Pete really caring about young men and the development of young men, that's me. I met him a decade ago when I don't even know if I was 20 yet, and I wanted to start this basketball school. And he was the first one to say, hey, come, let's talk about it. When you're young like that, I mean, a lot of people, it's tough, you gotta really work hard. And Pete was one of those guys, took me right under his wing and said, yes, come, and just total, I always joke you guys are my long-lost uncles, but but that is exactly the relationship.
You didn't say grandparents.
Yeah, I know he didn't, yeah. He wanted to keep coming back, so.
No, man, the impact, Hooplife would not be where it's at now, and that was Pete had a love, obviously he has a love for sports, and he has a love, and he was the champion for local sports in Regina, but more importantly than that, he had a passion. When he could see that there was someone that, hey, I want to pour into that individual, and that's how I feel it. And so, I mean, when you think back to the decade of just constant, unconditional support, as I reflect on that, it's pretty amazing. And so, he's an amazing person, and he just, I can't, and you've seen it every day with those young kids, that there's just a love and a care to take young men and turn them into real men, And so, I mean, I give all the credit.
And it's not just your organization where he's like that with, as you said, on this show, and Chris, you would know this, he brings on, he tries to get as many high school kids on with high school football, basketball, badminton. Who would talk about high school badminton? Pete would. Who would talk about cross country? Pete would. Which I think just sort of tells you the passion that he had for local sports and the athletes, young and old, that represent the city. Frank, with Lonsdale Boxing Club, I know Pete was a big supporter, or is a big supporter of the club and the Battle of the Prairies, and I know he helped you guys out a number of times with events that you guys were having, but some stuff maybe that people didn't know is that he was helping you out with sort of a committee with kids and mental health. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, we started a nonprofit organization called In Your Corner, and we held a boxing event, Fight for Tomorrow. And it's ironic that we called it that, and Pete's in the situation he's in right now, knowing that we're in his corner, and Pete just keeps on fighting for tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. The event started when there were so many young teenagers and early 20s individuals that were committing suicide. And it started with, there were some football players that were young, and then there was actually a wrestler who did a fundraiser with Lonsdale Boxing Club who committed suicide. And these are individuals that when you looked at them, you didn't realize that they were struggling in life. So what we really wanted to present in that was Pete and I started talking about it, and we were the founders of it, and we brought more people into it, is there's always that stigma. So how do we get rid of that stigma? And it really resonated, again, because Pete had known some young athletes, and we wanted to make it aware that it is okay to talk about this. You know, there's people out there that won't judge you. There's people out there that'll always help you and don't want anything from it. So, and I mean, there's that portion. There's also, he helped me with my writing because my writing is terrible.
Been there.
He'll always check your spelling.
Yes, he will. Yeah, no, absolutely. I know there are times too he'd send me a text on something. One thing that really bothered him, when a media outlet would say X player is going to the CFL Hall of Fame.
Oh, it drives me nuts too.
I know. It would be like, do you think that X knows that it's not the Canadian Football Hall of Fame? There's no such thing. It's the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And I remember one night, I forget who we were talking about, and it's just a slip of the tongue. And I said, he's going to the CFL Hall of Fame, and I looked over, and he was just glaring at me. And I was like, why is he glaring at me? And all of a sudden, it's like, oh. And I said, you know what? I said, no, it's the Canadian Football Hall of Fame or whatever, and it was just funny, because it's just so many of the little stories that people don't know about Pete. Rob, more so when you worked for the Leader Post, and as this was at a time when the Leader Post was the thing in this city. The sports department there, the Saturday paper would be, that thick, and now it's that thick, and I've talked about why that is and that, but the local sports contingent that you guys had, you saw that sort of dry up before you left to go to the Riders. To see Pete carry that on, what did it mean to you? Because I know you were big, and you still are. You're still very big on the local scene, even though you don't write about it every day, but you sort of do when it comes to football stories with your observations still on Riderville.com. But what did it mean to sort of have another ally with local sports that Pete had?
We've talked a lot about kind of people we know in the local sporting community, and there's the obvious, Roughriders and Pats and the major franchises in the city. But Pete's like a Rolodex of community sports, and there just isn't a coach or a manager, an athlete I think he doesn't know. Like it really is amazing to be able to talk in that context with Pete about things that we're both really passionate about. And when I left Leader Post to go to the Riders, Ariel Zur, our amazing director of communications,
who also, I should just sorry to interrupt, who also should say spent some time co-hosting this show if Pete or I were unavailable, and did a fantastic job as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, Ariel said one of the things I feel guilty about is, about you coming over here is I know how much you love local sports. And so now I cover LIT for the Luther website. I'm still freelancing, but
and you do some Pat stuff too, which I didn't know until earlier this year.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that about Pete, and I love how he's a champion of every sport at every level in a manner that I can only admire and envy. And there's such a humanity and such a depth to Pete and such a genuine caring. And we've seen it on this show. We've seen it in so many endeavors, not only in terms of the media, but as is the case with Chris and Sheldon and other high school football teams over the years. He loves it, and it's certainly not a lucrative venture, but it enriches Pete in so many ways, and by translation, those who have the honor of spending time with Pete.
And the one thing, and I know Graham mentioned it right off the top of the show when we were talking with him, we've been doing this for so long that there are people like Pete interviewed Jason Claremont when he was going to Usher.
Wow.
And I remember having Andrea Gottselig of the Kruger women's basketball team on, talking with her about the exploits of the U of R Kruger women's basketball team. And I think it was the year that they won the Nationals. And then a couple of years ago, her daughter, who now plays for the U of R, was on our show because she had, I think her team had won the city championship. I don't know if they'd won the provincials. But it just sort of shows like Pete and I would just she'd come in, you're Andrea's daughter, right? And then she'd leave and oh man, we are so old. Just having seen all that, and it just sort of says it, because we just never got tired of promoting the local athletes and the local organizations and the local clubs. There are so many of them. We're going to take a break. As you've seen throughout the show, we've got a couple more, just some vignettes of some funny moments that we have had. One of them, Rob, because I know you don't see it, is when the high impact wrestlers took Pete and I out one night.
Goodness.
I know. We still wanted you to be a part of that, and you weren't. We're still mad at you for that.
Well, you didn't go to my agent with notice and cash.
I know, exactly. When we come back, we'll talk more about Pete. You're watching Locker Talk on AccessNow.
All right, everybody, we're here on what is obviously a rainy night at the Regina Lawn Bowling Club. Mitch and I, being the finely tuned athletes that we are.
Okay, that's right. So you've got the little circle to the inside.
Boo!
Sweep! You did.
Kid's booing me. Punk. Kind of hoping your pants split. I'm just saying.
Oh, this is going to be close.
Look at that.
Good. Looking good.
What is that all about?
Looking
All
good.
right. Oh.
Come on.
Okay.
Oh.
Not bad.
What form?
Graceful, really.
You're gonna hit mine again.
I know.
The legend coming right over. Hello, Pete.
Ha, Nagila!
Don't ever do that on TV again.
Who's doing this interview here?
I don't know. We tried to get stars and they sent you guys. I don't know what happened.
Last time I checked, you're interviewing us.
Correct.
Right? There's a level of respect that you guys need to start showing here. 20 plus years in the business, a little bit of respect needs to be shown here.
20 plus years, yet no individual titles.
You know extensively about my history?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
This is what I'm saying, boys. This is what I'm saying.
You're gonna ask me to come on your TV show, and you're gonna insult me.
You guys don't want to go there.
Are you kidding?
Hey, I got some papers for you here.
What's this?
These are pink slips, so you guys are fighting.
What the f?
Oh, get the hell off.
What the hell are you talking about?
Me and Carlo and taking over this thing.
That is
Out of here. I'm tired of this.
You know, I don't like it having our Tuesday nights off.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it?
This is the life.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a new and improved Locker Talk. I am C-Note Palazzo, because it's all about the Benjamins, baby.
The ratings are already going to go through the roof. They say we have to have guests on the show. We have a guest here. What's your name?
Frank Tanky.
Frankie Tanky?
Yeah.
Now, Frank Takey, I hear you're an MMA fighter. Is that correct?
Yeah. Did you tell?
Go. We gotta. Oh no, they're not kidding. I'm out of these guys. Hey, fellas!
Oh, hey, guys.
Thought we had this chat last year.
What are you doing?
Folks, we're so sorry for that little bit of unpleasantness off the top of the show. I'm Pete Paczko, joined as always by Mitchell Blair, your host for another season of Locker Talk.
Ready, partner?
Woo! I assure you nothing but smooth sailing. What are you still doing here?
Cameron Okalita has been helping thousands of Canadians across Western Canada to solve their financial problems since 1995. We can help. Find out more by calling us or visiting CameronOkalita.ca.
This segment is brought to you by Extreme Hockey.
Here at Extreme Hockey, we have a wide range of sporting good products from hockey, baseball, football, and soccer. We specialize in working with our customers and having product knowledge and making sure that we have the right fit and getting you out there so you can produce and perform.
Support your community, grow your business, sponsor an AccessNow TV production, and your company will get unprecedented primetime television coverage and a platform to connect with thousands of people every day. Your logo and your message on all major television networks. We have content that suits your brand, like broadcast sports, talk shows, live events, and everything in between, ensuring that your message will reach the right audience. Call me today to find out more.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. It is the final Locker Talk of the year. We'll be taking the summer off, coming back in September. I'll be making an announcement about the show moving forward, coming up before we end tonight. But we are talking about the host of this program, a guy that has sat in this chair for the last... how many years? Doing Regina Sports. So he was doing this show when Cable Regina was the name of the outfit you were listening or you were watching right now. I don't know if he ever did the show from Park Street though. Did he across the Leader Post? I can't remember.
I wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the show has been called Regina Sports Report, Sports Zone, Locker Talk for the past so many years. And Pete's always been the guy in this chair, and due to health reasons, he's just unable to continue. And I know that he wanted so desperately to finish off this year, but that just didn't happen. And so we do this show in honor of Pete, and I thank you very much for watching. Rob, Pete and I joked that this show was called Geek TV because of the hosts. And we always
invited me on, sir.
Yes, I know. And we always sort of joked.
Business card.
Yes. We always sort of joked about, okay, the only people probably watching are like the parents of this high school athlete that's on, the family and this and that. And it became evident, especially this year, as to how many people do watch this program. And that sort of, it didn't catch me off guard, but it did, because I had so many people coming up to me and asking if Pete was sick, or if they knew Pete was sick, how he was doing. And these were people, I had no idea who they were. They weren't people that had been guests on the show. They were just people that watch. I know there was a woman at a Superstore location that she asked when I told Pete was battling through, she almost broke out in tears. I think that tells you a lot about how popular Pete was as an individual, or is as an individual, when you have so many people watching the show knowing what he's done for local sports.
Well, there's a difference between faking sincerity like I do and being genuine and caring like Pete is. And you know, you can't fake that. And you know, Pete's always been such a passionate guy about everything that he does, and I think people really latched onto that and appreciated it, and the compassion that he's shown to so many people, and the genuine interest he's shown in the breadth of the sporting community, and just in the breadth of people in Regina. I think that resonates, and so when something like this happens, it's so impactful to a degree that you don't necessarily appreciate at the time. When you're in the media, in a lot of cases, you are writing for or talking to people you've never met. Yep. And in a lot of cases, people you consider you part of the family, they consider you a friend if they've never met you before. And it's, you know, Pete has just always been so genuine and such a well-meaning, terrific person, and that's that's been reflected in everything that he's done. So it's not surprising to me that there's been that kind of response to what he's been going through. He's just an absolute gem, and that's not a secret.
Frank, what is his legacy?
A caring individual and a pioneer of bringing in local sports and sports that people really wouldn't care about, but bring to the forefront so that they had their chance in the limelight.
Andrew, same question to you.
What locker talk is in Regina, like, I'm going to speak to locker talk for a moment and then more broadly to Pete, but this is very rare. The work that you guys have done for 20 years, this is rare. You don't even have this in bigger cities. And you guys if you were to put the amount of lives you've impacted, and even people coming into the show, you probably couldn't even fit it in the Brandt Center when you put that all together. So the impact, I would go, when you think of legacy for Pete, it's like the impact he's made on young people especially, and giving them a chance to show their sport. And because sports, I mean, we're sports guys, we are, but at the end of the day, especially for the youth, it's not about the sport itself, it's about what the sport teaches you, how to become a better person and how to win at society. And so when you have a guy like Pete who's like you said, who's completely championed local sports and given those kids the opportunity to showcase their sport, it's huge. It's huge. It's an incredible, like, just the most genuine person you've ever met, compounding and all that. So, yeah.
You talked about the guests, and I know one thing I was thinking about, if Pete would have been here tonight for the final show, which would have been a regular show probably, I was going to ask him, because I'm sure he hasn't, how many different sports, how many different people have we spoken with? And obviously we've had some guests, that have gone from a high school wrestler to now coaching a school. We've had so many. He would have that information. There'd be times that a guest would come in and he'd be like, you were here back a couple, yep. Or so, like, it was just amazing the knowledge that he had. Chris, we've talked about Pete, and obviously, with Sheldon's football and that, the legacy that he leaves over at Sheldon. Pete is not the first coach to have health reasons sideline him, and I don't want to say that he's more important than the others that have gone through battles, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Pete has left a very lasting impact on football at Sheldon Williams.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. I think that that his contributions to what we've done over the last couple of years will not be forgotten for a very, very long time. And the things he was able to teach those kids through those years, I think, are going to be everlasting in their lives as well.
Is there any story that you want to tell us about Pete that maybe has to be clean, but just sort of maybe outline the individual that he is? Like, I think you saw Pete for what he is every week on this show. I know, like, when the Rider Pep Band would come in, and he was playing the cowbell, and he was loving that, and there are some other things that were happening when you knew we were having fun. But are there any stories that you've got that can maybe just outline what Pete the individual is?
Well, I think everybody here has touched on a story that outlines who Pete is. I know you, excuse me, you hear words like genuine and good human being. I think you come across a lot of good human beings in your life, as all of us have been around for a while now, and but he's truly unique. He's one of a kind. You won't meet another guy like Pete, I don't think. Jake is there. Jake is his legacy, right? Like, he's a carbon copy of Pete. He's an unbelievable young man, and what he's accomplished so far in his young life is amazing as well.
Andrew, I know we've had a lot of fun with you in here, and of course you're a big Lakers fan, and of course Pete and I have chastised you many a time for that. He loves having Roman in, and of course he missed that the last time when Roman was here. But there's a lot of stories of stuff that's happened behind the scenes over your many appearances here that I know has really just left a smile on everyone's face.
It's been one of the highlights of my life is coming in to Locker Talk, seeing Pete and Mitch, and both of them every time I'm here accusing me of being drunk on the show because I'm trying to talk them into cheering for the Lakers, and this has been an almost decade-long feud of me cheering for LeBron James and them accusing me of having a Mickey in my pocket. And so that's just like the sense of humor that he had. It was amazing. I mean, it wasn't a surface level person at all. Pete could go layers deep with you on multiple different topics, and he just had a charisma that you was just like infectious. Like I would come, maybe have a rough day, and sometimes you go to work, you don't have the best day, and then I'd come here right after work, and I'd have these guys, busting me up for just making you think about those conversations you'd have, like, getting wings with a friend watching a game, and you think of those are some of the best moments that we probably have all collectively had, and you think of take those best moments, and that was Pete. And I mean, one of the cool things for me too is I have a 6-year-old son now, and I mean, what network or what show would ever say bring your son on the show? And that was what Pete said. He said, yeah, bring your son with. And he actually came on when I was holding him when he was about 1 year old, and then he made a yearly appearance. And so, I mean, that's Pete. He had a love and a care for not just local sports, but he loved people. Mm-hmm. He loved people, and he loved passing joy off to people. So yeah, it's huge.
Frank, any story you want to pass along?
When we first talked about me coming on here, it was just about Lonsdale Boxing Club and local sports, and then he kept on growing that over the years, which kept me on my toes because I had to be really on top.
Me too, because when I'd find out you were on, I had to go to ESPN Boxing to find out what's new in the sport, because I had to admit, there was one time I forgot, and it was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. So
yeah, it really made me broaden my horizon, and it made me pay attention more and get out of my bubble of just worrying about Lonsdale Boxing Club or what was happening in Saskatchewan. And I made it my effort to figure out what's going on in Western Canada. And I'm active with the national group, but still it made me do that. And they'd always ask me why. And I told them about this show. And they're going, what? You have this show that you go on? And they were just flabbergasted on having a local network that promoted amateur sports, especially boxing.
Rob, if there was a show about me and they asked you about a story, that'd probably end up being a roast, and it'd be about 2 hours long, because you and I laugh several times over things that have happened with us over the years. But I know you spent a lot of time with Pete, and I know you've probably got a story or two as well.
Yeah, I mean, these last, actually after my mom died in December of 2019, I got to know Pete a lot better. We just started kind of communicating more and through Facebook Messenger or whatever. And then one day we decided to go for lunch, and we picked an outdoor patio, and we both took our dogs. And Rob and Pete, Candy and Frank would just sit there on nice spring
Frank
summer.
the dog, not Frank the yes.
Mm-hmm. Sorry we didn't invite you, Frank.
Story of my life.
If you would have paid, we would have invited you. And so we would just sit there on nice afternoons, and without really any deadlines or any hurry, and just talk about whatever. And we talked obviously about some of the health issues that he has faced. We talked, but more important, or I think more routinely, we just talked about anything, right? And it was just it's always been such a relaxing, just comfortable feeling, just sitting back, feeding half my lunch to my dog and chatting with Pete.
Yeah, I can say the same thing.
I treasure those memories, and I've taken a lot of pictures of them over the years, mainly because Candy's always getting up and Pete and trying to steal his lunch too, and I've got so many candid shots of Candy and Pete just kind of whoa, and those lunches, the time spent with Pete, it means so much, and it always has. Just a wonderful A1 friend.
I know, and thanks for that. I know I talked about this at the start of the year. When Pete, about a year ago, when he said that things weren't looking good, we set up a fundraiser, a pizza pasta night for him, and we didn't know how it would go, and we had so much support from people. If I asked someone for something, they came through. And I know even there was so much stuff that I said to both Andrew and Frank, I said, I would have asked for stuff from you, but I had so much stuff coming in. And at the end of the night, we raised almost $4,000 for him. And I think that literally shocked him, because when he walked into the establishment where we had the fundraiser, he couldn't believe the amount of people that were there. And the support and love that he saw that night, I think really pushed him to have some great days. And Pete, we're wrapping things up, and I know that you have taped a message, but I think on behalf of all of us, we love you, brother, and keep fighting. Don't give up. You're probably wondering what the Grape Crush is. Well, this is Pete's favorite drink. So, gentlemen, if I can get you to unscrew the lid, and a toast to Pete.
To Pete. To Pete. Love you, Pete.
Hey guys, it's Pete Paczko. Sorry I haven't been around much lately, as health concerns have moved to the top of my priority list, even ahead of hosting this show, and I love hosting this show. But there's no way I was going to let this broadcast season end without saying goodbye. When we started the show back in 2001, we weren't quite sure where things would go. Would we last more than one season? Well, 24 years later, I'd say that question has been answered. Only wish I had a 25th season in me, but it's not looking great at the moment, unfortunately. Still, I didn't come on here tonight to depress you. Tune into the nightly news if that's what you're into. No, this is a time to celebrate. To celebrate 24 years of bringing you the stories that make our local sporting community tick. In fact, my time as a freelancer with Access dates back to 1994, when the company was called Cable Regina. The show was called Regina Sports Report. That eventually morphed into something called Sports Zone and then Locker Talk. One thing that didn't change throughout all that time was my determination to shine a spotlight on sports and organizations that didn't usually get a lot of attention. I'd say we've been at least moderately successful in that respect. Gotta admit, life threw us a pretty big curveball back in the spring of 2020 when I was first diagnosed with cancer. And the local community, the local sporting community in particular, responded with love, compassion, and genuine caring for me and my family. So that's part of made working on this show so special, the overwhelming sense of community that binds us. This is probably the part in the monologue where I should say a couple of thank yous. Well, that starts with my co-host for the past 15 years or so, Mitchell Blair. Mitch's love of local sports rivals mine, and believe me, that's saying something. Next up is the crew, comprised each week of a combination of Access staff members and volunteers. The names and faces have changed over the years, but most recently, the dynamic duo of Graham Condo and Patrick Palmer have been the ones steering the ship from behind the scenes. Thank you, gentlemen. That brings us in turn to all the athletes, coaches, and administrators who've helped us bring you their stories each week. It has been my distinct pleasure to work with so many great people to tell those stories. Actually, hardly seem like work most weeks. And last but definitely not least is you, our loyal viewers. Your interest in and support of local sports has enabled us to do what we do for as long as we've done it. There's literally no Locker Talk without you, and for that, I thank you. Well, guys, I guess we've reached the end of the road, well, at least for this commentary. As I step away from my on-air duties to concentrate on fighting this wretched disease, please know that your love and support has meant the world to me over the past 5 years. No idea exactly how much longer I've got, but I do know one thing. When my time does come, I'll be able to look back and know we did something special each week. That's a legacy to be proud of, I think. So thank you for everything. Hopefully this isn't goodbye, but rather see you later. Many, many, many years ago, even before I was born, so you know it's a long time ago, baseball legend Lou Gehrig announced his retirement in front of a packed house at Yankee Stadium. Gehrig had been diagnosed with ALS, the disease which would later claim his life and now bears his name. So there was this proud, strong man staring death right in the face and proclaiming to tens of thousands of fans that he felt, because of all the support he was receiving from around the world, like the luckiest man alive. Never really understood that sentiment. Now I do. Thank you.
Folks, as you can see, this has been a tough show to do tonight. It's one that I truthfully thought would happen at this time 1 year ago. And it was one that I wanted to happen with both Pete and I doing the show together. Until a couple of weeks ago, I thought that would happen. Pete and I have done this show together for almost 20 years. It's been 20 years that I've loved. Showcasing the best Regina has to offer when it comes to all the various sports people and events that take place is one we've obviously both embraced. With everything, there comes a time when another chapter has to be written. For Pete, the book is closing, and sadly, it's closing prematurely. We sat in the parking lot of Access in March or April of 2024 to talk about the future of this show because of his battle. At that time, he said he didn't know because it depended on his health, which is more than understandable. It's something I didn't want to talk about, but it was something I needed to know, and I was more than happy to hear at this time last year that he was of the opinion that his health could get him at least another year, if not more. The reason I say this is because when we had that chat in 2024, I said, when he's done, so am I. We've been a team. And while I do love taping this show every week, I really have no desire to do it without Pete sitting in his chair. We're a team. If one leaves, so does the other. It's a conversation I had with Pete and people connected with this show. They were more than understanding of my feelings. I just think it's time to hand the torch over to someone new. No, I don't know who that is. What I do know is that the focus of this show will not change. At least I hope it doesn't. Access Communications has provided an avenue for Pete and I to showcase how great this city is when it comes to sports and all the people that make it that way. From Regina minor football to the high schools, from the U of R to the Thunder, Riot, and the Red Sox, from the Queen City Marathon to the WCP Cup, there's so much to be proud of in this city. And it's a big portion of what makes this city great. And yes, while there are many problems here, the bottom line is this is a great city because of the people in it, young and old, who do what they can to represent themselves in their school or organization and this city and province in tremendous fashion. So in closing, I thank everyone here for allowing me and allowing Pete to come into your living rooms each week over the years. It's been our pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for putting up with us. Good night, everyone. Have a great summer, and please keep this show as a part of your schedule if you're one of those who have watched for a long time. Thank you again.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today